Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February 17th, 2026 Board of County Commissioners Monday board briefing session. It is 9 o'clock and we will go ahead and get started. And we've got Mike Burgess on. So Mike, go ahead, and the record reflect that we have all 5 commissioners are present. And so Mike, we'll let you go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Thanks, commissioners. Just kind of a general update where we're at. Today is day 37 of 60, and it's one of our more important days. This is the House of Origin cutoff. So Senate bills have to be out of the Senate, House bills have to be out of the House unless they have a budget impact. So a number of the ones we'll talk about need to get off the floors today to be alive for the remainder of session. And then just for a point of reference, I know that budget folks have been meeting internally to drop their budget proposals that will be released on Sunday. Interestingly, on the 22nd, there was a revenue forecast yesterday that bumped up the revenue available to budget writers by about 800 million, maybe 700 to 800 million in the current biennium. So that's the remainder of until the end of the 25-27 biennium. And then another, I think it was close to 1.2-ish, 1.1 billion in the next biennium. So certainly was a budget crunch here. There is still budget pressure, but just know that you'll probably see some reporting on it, but that the budget situation probably got a little better. I guess easy for me to say because I'm not writing the budget, but maybe relieved a little bit of the pressure. Transitioning then to the list in front of you, we talked about the income tax. That's the millionaire's income tax bill. That bill passed the Senate yesterday. Mostly party line. 3 members of the majority joined the minority party in voting against the bill. And we've talked about this bill in the context of the public defense funding. There was that distribution and provision in the bill stayed, but you'll remember the original amount of the money was 5%. It was bumped up to 7 when it left, I think when it left Ways and Means, but it stayed at 7 on the Senate floor yesterday. But one other thing to note, there was an amendment hung on the bill that repealed the sales tax on a number of services. So you'll remember last year with the passage of Senate Bill 5814, so that was the big sales tax bill here last year that applied the sales tax to a number of things like live presentations, security services, amongst other things, which did result in a bump in revenue for you all at the local level, the local sales tax. But there was an amendment hung to the income tax bill to remove that sales tax. I think it's either in 2028 or 29, but it's not like immediate. It's kind of coincides, I believe, with when the millionaire income tax bill would take effect. That bill still has a long way to go. It has to go over to the House for their consideration, but just wanted to make you aware of an amendment that was hung yesterday. Do you have any questions about income tax before we get into a few bills here? Okay. First bill. Oh, I'm sorry.
I had a question about the amendment that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
So is that all of the new, was it for all of the new businesses that would have to pay sales tax or just some?
So most, Commissioner, I could send you the details of the amendment, but
Or collect sales tax is what I guess.
right. So there was some other on advertising, and the advertising stuff, to my understanding, was not touched. So it's like security services, live presentations, and when I say security stuff, services, it goes to like the armored trucks and those types of things. Some of the temporary staffing issues were dealt with. Well, that might have been a different bill, excuse me, but not, I guess not all of them. So let me make a note and send you a message with what exactly was repealed. I can just send you the amendment. It's pretty self-explanatory in the effect statement.
Okay, thank you.
But like I said, that does have a local government fiscal impact. Okay. The next bill is new to you all. Scott and I exchanged some comments about it. You might have seen a WASAC alert about this one. It deals with cultural resource protections, and I'll let Scott get into the technicalities of that, what that all means. There's some concerns here about, well, I guess I'll let Scott go first, and then I'll kind of relay some of the concerns I'm hearing just more broadly about it. So thank you, Scott.
Sure, Mike. Good morning, commissioners. What the WASAC planning directors have discussed on this bill is that it changes the uses of the SEPA categorical exemptions for some projects. And chiefly, it says that we, the county and municipalities, would have to create an ordinance of cooperation with the tribes, and that ordinance would then prohibit potentially the SEPA exemptions from being used without tribal comment or perhaps even approval. It tries to codify a practice that Spokane County has used for quite some time, and that we have generally notified tribes of land use projects and other things that are in the county for comment. But like special districts themselves, the tribes sometimes remain silent on those comments. And, we take silence as acquiescence. If we don't hear something back from you by a date certain, we go on forward and bring that through our planning commission. This would, if it were in place, would mandate that the tribes must opine on a project that would otherwise be exempt from a SEPA analysis. And while that sounds a little esoteric, most single-family detached housing, a lot of smaller projects like that are categorically exempt from SEPA. This would add an enormous burden to virtually every building permit and a lot of the land actions that are no longer, or that don't have to go through a full SEPA analysis. And the challenge is, again, for Spokane County, we have tribal membership now on the steering committee, voting membership. Tribal memberships participate in PTAC. We've got a pretty good record of at least collaboration on letting our tribes know what's going on. This makes it more mandatory, and unfortunately, like the special district analogy, if the tribes don't respond, that permit is, in effect, it's almost vetoed. So this is really burdensome on local government. It's like many things, it seems like there's a good idea behind it. It also seems like Spokane County is already doing most of that work. And at the very least, we'd like to see this pushed into the interim for some future discussion among WASAC tribes and others. This is a big step to go.
So Scott certainly was great touching on some of the technicalities. So just some of the things I'm hearing. So Scott mentioned the housing, and so there's potential for pretty big impact on housing, and that's certainly been a high priority for the legislature. So in some ways, the outcome of this bill, some of the consequences would impact housing availability, or has the potential to do that, certainly. And then there's also the cost component for your staff, because Scott, this involves making, model ordinances and different things like that, right? That I assume would take up staff time and have some cost impacts on you and your folks in your department.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of these ordinances that require archaeological cultural resource protection are complicated. They require a lot of analysis. Sometimes things pop out in those that you don't expect, and right now they're handled by a discovery method. If we find something on a site, or if a builder finds something on a site, then the tribes are notified and get a chance to do this. This makes us create an ordinance to do all of that work up front.
So I guess at this point, oh, sorry, excuse me, go ahead, Commissioner.
Can I ask, Scott, have you looked at just the original bill, or have you looked at the striker? Because it looks like the prime sponsor of the bill, at least on the website, there's a floor amendment, a striker that she's dropped. And usually when the prime drops a striker, it usually gets adopted. So I,
Commissioner, no, I've not seen the striker.
No, Scott, that you did. That's that's the language I shared with you was the
Oh,
floor
okay.
striker.
okay,
Okay,
great.
So yeah, sorry, I should have said that. So Scott's comments reflected the floor striker that is available. We voted on today. That's one of the bills that would have to pass the Senate floor by 5 o'clock today. So I know this is probably a lot to digest, and if you're not comfortable, commissioners, I understand that. But I would suggest if I could talk to Scott after this call. He gave a really good summary of some of the things Spokane County is already doing to deal with this, plus some of the other implications, and I'd like to share that with your delegation members. If you give me the go ahead to do that, but again, I need to, Scott, I'll have to call you afterwards. Obviously, if commissioners, if that's the path you want to go down, but I think that'd be the most effective way to communicate today, just given the time crunch.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Yeah,
Okay.
Scott, you can get that summary to Mike. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, Scott, if you want to make an attempt, it was just some of those opening comments you made to the commissioners about what you're already doing and potential negative impacts and those types of things.
sure. Yeah, I can put that together for you this morning.
That'd be awesome, and I'll probably give you a call too to walk through it a little bit. But thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Kearns, you asked last week about the flock bill, and so that's the. I see you're nodding your head. I'm assuming the other commissioners know what that means. I'm not. I know what Flock's a camera technology, right? That captures license plates. And the bill got some press going into session, but this summary reflects the bill that passed the Senate. Just for point of reference, it passed 40-9, so very bipartisan. One member of your delegation, Senator Christian, was a no on the bill. But generally, I think this bill had some controversy to it when it was first introduced. But given that vote count, looks to me like a lot of the, just my observation that some of those concerns would have been addressed. And given the bipartisan nature of the way it passed, I have not talked to Senator Christian to know what his opposition was. But just wanted to leave that with you, Commissioner Kearns, and there you have the bill report. I don't know if you have other specific questions about it or you just wanted an update on it.
Well, I had heard that it had been amended quite a bit from its original form when it was introduced, and I was
Yeah.
just wondering kind of what had been amended, what were the major changes in it?
I'd have to get back because, like I said, I haven't done a side-by-side analysis of it. But once I saw that bipartisan nature, I'm assuming that law enforcement had issues with it. I'm guessing, and I'm imagining that some of those were addressed as the bill moved because of that vote count. I have a call into a colleague of mine that works for the police and sheriffs. He and I did not. We tried to connect with him yesterday. We didn't connect. But I can ask some more questions and fill you back in if that's helpful.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. The next one is I had an attachment there, and Tuig was gonna jump on.
He's in the room.
Oh, super. Thanks. So
Okay.
Kyle, I gave them that letter and I had asked Kyle to explain to you kind of what's going on with this issue.
Certainly. Thank you, commissioners. This was kind of a quick thing that got pushed together last week, kind of just in time for the budget discussions, which is a regional request from the Valley, the city, the county, and the SRTMC to SRTC to for the state to fund our TMC, our Traffic Management Center. We're the only TMC in the state that is not fully funded through WashDOT. We use SRTC dollars to shore up the funding on top of our local participation, but that's a couple $1 million that is coming out of what would otherwise be going to local road projects. I don't have enough history to know why we are the only TMC in the state that's not funded, but just the request and consideration that we get treated the same as everybody else in the state.
So on that one, Commissioner, just purely informational to you. That will be the outcome of this will be reflected in the budgets because along with operating, we'll see transportation budgets. I don't know if those are coming Sunday, but at least I would imagine early next week. or soon thereafter. And so this is something we'll look for in the budget. But and continue to advocate if it's not there, but it just certainly seems like an act of or a issue of fairness with the others around the state.
Mr. French.
Yeah, so Kyle's interpretation is right. We do participate in the TMZ here at the local level. And I believe, and you've confirmed that we are the only one in the state that is not paid for by the state. And, every time we come to renewing the contract, the state comes in and whines and threatens to eliminate it. And then we participate at the local level and stuff. So it's an ongoing battle, but it should be the responsibility of the state.
Yes, one of my colleagues raised it with me, and Kyle had done the letter, so just wanted to make you aware of that, Commissioner. So something we'll add to the list that we pay attention to with the transportation budget.
Yeah, that was just my question. So how do we plan to get the attention?
So this letter was sent to I imagine it went to the delegation plus the budget leads for transportation. So the chairs in both the House and Senate. And I know that there was some conversations with them too.
Okay.
So that work has happened here. Okay. The next two items, Commissioner Walter, you had asked about or mentioned these two bills at the end of the meeting. Thanks, Kyle. You had mentioned these at the end when we talked last week. Just updates on them. They have both moved out of the House and have moved over to the Senate. Assuming you asked about these because these are bills that you liked. We didn't talk about it much, but just wanted to. I told you I'd follow up on it. So yeah, they've moved out of the House and are now in the Senate. I don't think they've been scheduled for hearings yet, but that'll come in the next day or so because once we finish floor action today at 5, we'll transition back to committees until next Wednesday. So I'd imagine these are bills that could be getting consideration in the Senate. So I don't know if you have any other questions or comments on those, but just wanted to add them to
Yeah,
my
the one was
track.
about permit reform.
Yep.
The other one was the expanding affordable housing developments for properties owned by religious organizations, which sounded, there may be some reduced revenue, but most of those religious organizations aren't contributing taxes, I don't think, from their property. So there's not really a downside to having them develop affordable housing. So I was just wondering if they're moving. So
Yeah, no, they're moving. And then onto the bill list here, the waste to energy bill, it needs to get out of the House today. That's the next one is the TIF bill. It has passed the House, and that's the one that includes now that public safety language that we had wanted. 2489 is kind of what's been nicknamed. This is the public camping bill that we've talked about that has some local control issues in that. That bill does need to move from the House today. And then 2655. So this is the data center issue that we were discussing. I think Commissioner French, we talked about this now 2 or 3 weeks ago. That bill did not move, but the meat of this bill was amended into a different bill on the House floor on Saturday night. That's House Bill 2515. And 2515 deals with data centers, and I guess an oversimplification would be kind of their energy consumption, impact on the grid, and those types of things. But the title was broad enough to amend the language in 2655 into it. So there is now the portion of the bill that we liked in this other bill. I will tell you that 2515 has a lot of controversy to it. It's one of the bills that's getting a lot of consideration, especially in the environment committees and different energy users, and those types of things. The bill does have a hearing on Friday at 10:30 in the Senate Environment Committee. Commissioner French, did you want to make any comments about this issue?
Yeah, so as I've said before, Spokane County is one of 6 counties in the state that is not eligible for this tax exemption. And you saw in the newspaper last week Walla Walla County that was included has a $5 billion project going into Walla Walla now. And we have in development a $4 billion project that would bring 1,200 jobs and green energy to Spokane County. But we need that exemption to make that project possible. So there is a lot of debate going on with other elements of the bill, not specifically ours, but we do have champions in both sides of the Senate to include Spokane County. So we will continue to work that, and I will be testifying at the 10:30 hearing on Friday about the energy side of this. This is, like I said, the data center is what preheats the water that goes into the hydrogen production that creates the clean energy. And without that, it's actually more expensive to do hydrogen and more expensive for data centers and stuff. So this is a win-win for the environmental side of it, as well as for the data center. So we'll continue. Fortunately, we've got champions in both sides of the Senate for the bill. So I'm told that it should go through fairly easily, but we'll see. Things are always dynamic.
Mike, sorry to kind of back up a
No.
little bit on the waste to energy bill.
Yeah.
Are you hearing much on that? I noticed I'm looking when it's still in rules, but when it came out of committee, a whole host of people signed up in without recommendation is like a lot of people that they didn't say no, like they didn't say do not pass, but they signed without recommendation. Are you hearing anything?
I think, Commissioner, that just reflects that the bill was a work in progress still. And then without rec is kind of a new thing that's being used more. I don't want to say it's like voting present, but supposedly it has the status of, as a legislator, when a bill is moving from committee, I would rather the full body, so the full legislature make it the decision on the bill, as opposed to my opinion when the bill leaves committee influencing that decision.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't have a real good answer for why some legislators do without rec or not. But it's just a new thing. But I wouldn't read too much into that, Commissioner. I just know that it's moving. And again, it needs to get off the floor today. You do bring up a good point. It is in rules, but there are a handful of other bills that I would say are, you know, environmental bills. There's a handful that deal with recycling that are still in rules. And a lot of that has to do with a couple of them that are more controversial. One in particular, the bottle bill. You might have heard the bottle deposit bill that's back from last session. So that bill's getting a lot of work right now. And these other bills, though not specifically related to that, they are environmental bills. And so, you know, a lot of times the House or the Senate will do bills in groupings. And so maybe this is a reason why it hasn't moved yet. But
And then to close the loop on the data center bill out of the
oh, yeah,
House,
sorry.
there was some confusion with regard to the nature of the amendment and what its goal was. And so I was interacting with several of the folks from our local delegation from the Republican side. And unfortunately, their understanding of the amendment and its intent and its impact on Spokane was not really fully appreciated until after the vote. But I'm told that even our local delegation supports the bill. And if it comes up again at the House, they'll support its passage.
Yeah. Progressing on your list, Commissioners, the aquifer recharge bill needs to pass the Senate today at 5. The residential development zone, so that's the one with doing development in commercial areas. That bill did pass the Senate, but it still has some work in terms of the comments that Scott provided to me last week, and myself and others are talking to legislators now on the House side about that. It'll go to the House Local Government Committee, I believe is where it went. And so continue to pay attention to that as it goes through the process. And then the last one is that tort claim bill. It needs to pass the Senate today at 5 as well. But having said that, my guess is this bill has some general fund impact, has the potential for that. So it could be exempt from the cutoff. So I'll need to learn more about that one. But so that's kind of where we are now. This list will shrink. But by this time next week, I will, at a minimum, have seen an operating budget and be able to relay to you some of the things that are or are not in there.
Yeah, so Mike, on the residential development in commercial zones.
Yes.
Want to give you an example of part of the concern on that. If you've got let's say, let's say a tire shop that uses a lot of air compressor tools, and they're in business for 20 years, and all of a sudden a commercial development goes up next to them, and the residents in the residential development goes up next to them, and the residents complain about the air tools, then it jeopardizes a commercial business. That's the problem. That's one of the reasons why you do zoning that recognizes the competing uses, and that's part of the concern about this bill. It jeopardizes existing businesses by interjecting a new use next to them that's non-compatible.
Got it. Okay, that's what I have, commissioners. Stuff's changing quick around here. Some of these amendments, stuff popped up out of nowhere. So that's what happens around here, though. Okay.
So I will be in Olympia tomorrow
Oh, you will? Okay.
and Thursday for LSC, but I'll also be working the Hill and stuff. So I'll coordinate some of that with you.
Yeah, why don't you let me know if you want to come up on campus on either day. Just let me know.
I definitely will. And
Okay.
do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Waters, do you? Yeah, no, what do you got?
I wasn't trying to, I guess, Commissioner French, you were talking about the data center bill, and then this new, did everything get moved to the other House Bill 2515? Did everything that was in that other previous version?
Everything that affected Spokane County got
Yeah,
moved.
okay,
Yes.
Okay,
There are other elements. There are other elements of 2515 that are not friendly,
okay,
but they're friendly, not friendly across the state and not specific to Spokane. So, but amending 2515 to include Spokane in the exemption was the way to move it
to
forward.
keep it moving, okay.
Yeah, so
So we'll
it's
see where.
kind of like,
it goes.
you know, yes, I like oatmeal, but I don't like it the way you fixed it. Kind of a deal. You're still going to eat it.
Okay.
Like that analogy?
Feels pretty good.
Is that,
On,
that's what you say, that's what you always say, right, Mike?
I say it exactly like that. I'm gonna remember that one, Commissioner French. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You're busy. Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, that's going to take us to Matt Zerikor.
You know that this is going to be spilled. Have support by labor. That's why you did it.
Morning, Commissioners. Appreciate the time this morning. Have a couple of items for you. One you've seen before. It's our Buttercup dump out in the valley. And last time we visited, you had requested that we talk to our solid waste folks in ecology regarding the landfill closure. You can see up on the aerial there. It's the area outlined in the red and the yellow. And just make sure there were no concerns with surplusing this property. We had those conversations, and both our solid waste folks and ecology, there's some new permitting requirements that are obviously requirements go up with time, different than what we had before, but they didn't feel this would impact our dump. So we're comfortable recommending moving forward to surplusing this property, and happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding it. Easy.
Ecology is good with their dump.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, at least there's no anticipation of additional requirements going forward. Those requirements to maintain the dump will move with the sale of the property. But it's It's pretty stable. There's a pretty good cap system on it. Deborah's been vigilant in having that cap maintained. And the new owners will need to take on that responsibility, but it'll all be part of disclosure on the sale of the property.
And all the items in that are parcels we own.
Those are all the parcels we're talking about surplusing, and the dump really just impacts a handful of those lots. And
Right.
Previous slide shows the dump area.
Right.
if you go back one slide for me.
It's actually wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
being remotely done. Slide.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you can see there, the dump impacts just those properties outlined with the yellow and red hatching. So there's quite a bit of property available. It has other issues. I mean, there's floodplains, it's heavily forested, getting access to it. There'll be some work left. But the property has value, should be developed. It's developed to the south and the north, so it's timely for us to get it off our books.
I would say that's not discouraging anyone from developing on hard to build properties right now, so.
Yeah, everything.
But I want to
goes
make sure
in.
that we're getting a fair price for these properties.
Okay, well, with that, we will get it out to auction and see what comes. Okay, appreciate your time. All right, next item. Yeah, we got a bunch of pictures of trees. So this is an easement request for Vista Corporation as part of our Mount Chatteroy project. We needed them out of the existing right of way to accommodate the expansion of Elk Chatteroy Road. To do that, we're pushing them off into properties we own. So we're granting a Vista an easement on county property. That's a landfill closure site there, the big parcel on the north side of the road. And then that's just a remainder piece that we also have monitoring wells on, but just giving them room to put their poles outside the roadway to meet our clear zone requirements. So they're really helping us with getting out of the road. Happy to answer any questions on that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Very good, that was easy.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna make sure Gina did. Sure, Gina, did you make sure we got the? Did not get it.
Talking about the Lippy Drive comments.
Yeah. Oh, you guys did, okay, just making sure. It's lit, I mean, she's coming, okay. Good morning.
Morning, do you want us here?
Yeah.
I know we have slides as well. Well, good morning. And I don't know if there's a advance or I'll just verbally let you know when to advance. Perfect. Okay. So good morning. I'm Emily Cameron with the Downtown Sports Partnership, and with me, let's introduce yourself.
Waters Mead Foundation, formerly of our own.
So we are two of the 5 conveners of the Safe and Healthy Spokane Task Force. Alongside ourselves is Alicia Benson with Greater Spokane Incorporated, Lance Beck with the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber, and Letitia Hill with the Vista Foundation. And we've kind of self-anointed ourselves as conveners, but really what that means is we are undertaking the effort of truly convening leaders from across Spokane County to come together and talk about the issues around public safety and public health, which are very broad issues. I was here several months ago before we launched this effort to kind of talk about this in a very broad sense. But today is really about how did we get where we are today and where are we going over the next several months. So starting with why even create a task force, backing up, this really started back really in early 2024. Unlike Spokane County, on the other side of the state, Whatcom County had recently passed a local ballot measure to provide resources to support a 15-point implementation plan that they had developed around public safety and health. And so using some inspiration, a group of about 20 community leaders, some of you in this room joined us to go to Whatcom County and really learn in the course of probably 36 hours, a deep dive in what they had done there. There were some lessons that we learned. There are some things that we also learned that we were doing here that they weren't doing in Whatcom County. But we came back together and that group continued to meet over the course of the following year to learn together what was happening in Spokane. And that really evolved into what became the Safe and Healthy Spokane Task Force. And so again, it really centered around, what are the public health and safety systems that are not working effectively today. With the realization that people in Spokane County are suffering from behavioral health issues, mental illness, substance use disorders, and they are not receiving the comprehensive or coordinated care that they need. Spokane's jail is overcrowded, it's understaffed, and it creates unsafe conditions for both the people who are incarcerated as well as the people that we are tasking with taking care of them. And then, of course, inadequate justice and treatment facilities, an overburdened criminal justice system, including our courts, and exacerbating challenges that we're facing here locally in Spokane. So understanding the scale of these challenges, we understood that there also is a sense of urgency. And that really is the driving force behind convening this task force. If you wouldn't mind hitting the next slide for me. What we looked at is who needed to come together and what are the resources? And then really, what is the bigger picture? So when we think about why this task force is created and really what it's been tasked with doing, it's a community-led initiative. I talked about the 5 conveners that are not only bringing the task force together, but also funding this first phase of bringing the task force together. And looking at how they can develop actionable strategies to bring back to Spokane County. So looking through the lens of enhancing public safety, supporting behavioral health, and then really truly strengthening system coordination across that broad spectrum. Next slide.
Before you leave that,
What's that?
before you leave that.
Yeah.
So under which one of those 3 categories does expanding the jail fall?
To some degree, I would argue it touches all 3 of them.
Okay.
I think that facilities are an underlying factor in all of what we're going to talk about. And I'll dive into a little bit of the 4 areas that we've structured the work into, but facilities are going to be a constant part of consideration as without adequate facilities, the programs are not effective. And again, that's where that coordinated system strengthening comes into play.
Thank you.
Next slide. So, which is probably a big part of this. So, what is the vision of the task force? We talk about what it's being tasked to do, but really the vision here is looking at individuals with serious mental illness and substance use disorders, ensuring that there is access to comprehensive, effective, humane, equitable, and data-driven systems of care, in particular that improve public safety, that are strengthening behavioral health system, and ensuring coordinated service with adequate and effective correctional facilities with crisis stabilization capacity. So we convened 43 members from both business and community leaders, people with lived experience, victim advocates, next slide for me, first responders, law enforcement, public health, judges, courts, labor, and government. So this is a very broad cross-section of the Spokane community, but we also recognize, and we'll talk a little bit later, that public safety and public health touch every corner of Spokane County. And there will be ways that this is expanded, but this was how we developed that initial group of 43 task force members. And next slide for me, please. I'm going to go through these quickly. They are also listed on the Safe and Healthy Spokane website. That's safeandhealthyspokane.org.
Safehealthyspokane.org.
Yeah, safeandhealthyspokane.org. Thank you. So community representatives here, if you can, I know from here, I can barely read the list here, but this is just to show you again, kind of the broad cross section of community leaders and business leaders. Next slide. Emergency response and health representatives, 2 of whom I have sitting here with me, and the next slide. Government, justice, and correctional representatives. So The list, as I mentioned, is also available on our website, but this is a group of people who, some had never been in the room before, as we learned in that first task force meeting. So, when we talk about conveners and funding this phase of work, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide for me. It's a broad group. So I talked about the conveners. You've got a consultant team that we have funded to come in and help to facilitate these meetings, MIG being that primary consultant, with the Lifebend group supporting, and then DH in communications. We have a planning team, which is a small group of the conveners and representation from the 3 large jurisdictions, including Spokane County, of which Chair Brooks and Commissioner Jordan are a part of, along with Sheriff Knowles, the city of Spokane, and the city of Spokane Valley as well. And then you've got your task force members, the advisory committees. So there are 4 advisory committees that we'll detail here in a little bit, as well as the public at large, because we want to hear from them throughout this process. What does public safety and public health mean to them? What are the improvements, changes, and outcomes for them? Next slide, please. What's been done? We launched at the end of September with a press conference, and many of the task force members, we began meeting monthly a week later. So beginning of October was that first meeting. We've had 5 meetings of the task force. In that time, we also had a 2-day workshop facilitated by the Lifebend Group, which is a nationally recognized firm with experience working in Miami's justice system, as well as working in justice improvement and diversion systems across the country. In that workshop, we had more than 100 community leaders, service providers, healthcare and correction workers, law enforcement, judicial systems. Again, this was a cross-section of people, some who had never been in the room together, to really look at what are the challenges and the needs and the gaps. And through that process, the Lifebend Group developed an independent system-wide assessment of Spokane County's behavioral health, crisis response, justice systems, and how they interconnect with each other, and identifying systems, opportunities, and gaps. Next slide for me. So they produce what we call the Asset Assessment Report. I want to say that this is one of many reports, but this report in particular, which was released in January, with really looked at building a shared understanding of how people move through Spokane's crisis response, diversion, treatment, housing, and reentry systems, looking at where there are opportunities for improvement that can have the greatest impact. So input was gathered through that 2-day workshop, as well as interviews, system mapping, in particular, both the SIM mapping from Spokane County and the city of Spokane, document review, and many other opportunities for input. They looked in particular at the previous studies. The idea here is, let's not recreate the wheel. We know a lot of work has been done in Spokane County. Let's coalesce that, look at where we can build on the strengths, where there's still opportunities, and where there are still gaps. And that's how they developed their 56 point recommendation assessment. If you wouldn't mind the next slide, please. With this, the report identified not only strengths and gaps, but also looking at short, medium, and long-term recommendations. And I want to, again, test your eyesight here with this slide. This is a sampling of what they evaluated to be able to build the asset assessment. We understand that along with lots of prior reports, that the asset assessment is highlighting complexity of the challenges, as well as the strengths in the existing system. Next slide, please. It's focusing on a balanced and coordinated approach that strengthens the full continuum of care, focusing on diversion, treatment, stabilization, and housing options, as well as looking at the need for modernized, safe correctional facilities. I want to highlight some of the key findings in the report, because this is a phased roadmap for action. And again, this is an asset assessment that looks at some, but it's not, it will be one of many things that the task force will consider, as it's looking at those short-term, midterm, and long-term strategies to strengthen capacity and coordination. Next slide, or I'm sorry, here. I'm going to run through these briefly. There are 5 total bullets that I wanted to highlight around the key findings. The first 2 on your screen, I think it's telling. The Lifebend Group, who has done this in many communities, continue to comment on the fact that the Spokane region does have significant assets across many different sectors. There's committed leadership here, experienced providers and partnerships that through better alignment and coordination and shared infrastructure could be a real opportunity for Spokane. Next, the crisis response system would benefit from an improved integration among providers and expanded stabilization options. Next slide. Housing availability and how it plays into this broad spectrum of behavioral health, homelessness, and the justice system. Workforce capacity challenges, this is particularly important as we talk about the facilities, and then improving data sharing and common performance measures as that can support coordination, transparency, and informed decision making. It is important to acknowledge that this report did not dive into the details specifically around the jail facility. They did note the need to analyze and explore all of the opportunities around facility needs, looking at appropriate capacity, long-term operational sustainability, and that work we know is being led by the county. I do want to highlight that a big point the Lifeman Group has continued to stress, and I think something that the task force has come back to, is that when systems work together, taxpayer dollars are used around community investments, the system impact is greater and it reduces the strain on emergency systems. So I think that's been a consistent theme. You'll hear a little bit more as we kind of move forward. So moving forward, what's next? And I'm going to transition over to Zeke now to talk a little bit about, I mentioned we've had 5 task force meetings. This week actually launches the next phase as we now launch 4 advisory committees that will support the work of the task force.
Thanks, Emily. So one of the things that we heard in Whatcom County as they addressed some of these same issues was that there was real value stepping back a little bit and looking at a bigger picture. And that's part of why the frame here is really about each of those 3 elements that were on that initial slide, and the recognition that facilities matter in terms of how you do these things. So the other thing that I'll say is that there, as you heard from Emily, and I think you would hear from Mike and Justin, there's not a lot that's new here. We've studied these issues in considerable ways. What we think is new is that the folks that are in this room have not all been in a room together with this information and these issues together in this way. So you do hear a lot in these meetings about people saying, well, actually, I didn't know that was happening, but there's something I might be able to do to address that. And so in many ways, it's about putting the right or a set of folks in a room together that haven't been there and really using the assets and information that is ours as Spokane as we move forward. So we want to extend that to a broader group with these advisory committees. This is about moving from the almost 40 people that are on the task force to really 40 plus individuals on each of 4 different task forces. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So we've organized those committees around 4 different issue areas, aligned with the sequential intercept model that both the city and the county have engaged in. So the first advisory committee is looking at prevention and crisis response. How in the pre-arrest environment can prevention and crisis response ensure timely and clinically appropriate care? That's aligned around the first, the 0 and 1 on the SIM intercepts. And you can see, unfortunately, I can't read. I can try to, I mean, I know the names, but it's been a minute. The names of the folks that are leading these. We have leads for each of these advisory committees that are also task force members. And they're individuals who have bring different experience to each of those issues. The intent is that those individuals are really in a role to help ensure that the information, the recommendations that come out of these advisory committees can roll back up into the task force so that we can deliver a set of recommendations and a report in May. The second advisory committee is focused on custody strategies in courts.
Can I don't know all these names of these co-leads. Can you give a little short bio on the first one? I know Justin Johnson. I know a couple of them. I don't know all of them. Can you go through
Sure.
who they are?
So Justin Johnson with the Spokane County, Prevention and Crisis Response 1. Co-leads are Jan Downey with
Frontier
Frontier,
Behavioral
thank you.
Health. She's Chief Operating Officer for Frontier Behavioral Health.
And Angel.
Yeah, her
Okay.
name is different.
Okay, I didn't know her. Okay.
And Angel Tamayo Sam is runs an organization called Yo-Yo and Spokane, a community-based provider, is also an advocate. So intentionally, as we thought about these different advisory committees, trying to bring together disparate perspectives, but people who've been building relationships through the task force to be able to focus on the effort that's at hand. The second one, you'll have to,
Dr. Melissa Mace with
NAACP.
NAACP.
And also a mental health provider.
You have Judge Tony Hazel, and Mike Barber with Spokane County. Third group, reentry, discharge, and community corrections. You have Eric Lamb, the city of Spokane Valley, Maggie Yates, with the city of Spokane, and Matt Albright with Providence. And then the fourth group, correctional and diversion facilities, infrastructure and system coordination, co-chaired by Chad Wendell of Hutton Settlements, Berla Spencer with the way out, or excuse me, the way to justice, thank you. And John Brown with Chad's Help.
So the third advisory committee is focused on reentry, discharge, and community corrections. That's really thinking about as we're integrating folks from incarceration back into community and how we're doing that in a way that doesn't create a cliff for their experience, but actually is integrating them back in meaningful ways. And then the third one, to your question earlier, Commissioner, is about facilities, fourth, I should say, facilities, infrastructure, and system coordination. So that's really about thinking holistically about both what are the resources that are required, but also what are the kinds of facilities that are required in order to ensure that the programming at all levels can be most effective, and how are we aligning those resources and those systems across the board to have 24/7 access to services. These committees will be taking a set of recommendations that come from the asset report and from the task force that are aligned with each of those issue areas. You can move to the next slide, thank you. And we'll be prioritizing, in effect, how we think about the opportunity to take action on those recommendations. So looking first at ensuring that the recommendation has a real opportunity for impact. Can it affect the problems that we're talking about in meaningful ways? Paying attention to the opportunity, meaning how is it opportune in this environment for that particular recommendation? Do we already have, is it about expanding existing services? Is it about building on? Is it about bringing together folks across systems to be able to address it? And then feasibility is largely about resources. Does it require new resources? Do we already have the resources in place? And or do we have a sense of where those resources might come from as we move forward? So really asking them, there's as Emily mentioned, there's 54 to 56 different recommendations. It's too many for the 3 days that these groups will be coming together to discuss them, to really holistically look at each of those different recommendations. So in that process, we're asking these advisory committees to really lean into identifying which of the areas that have the most opportunity for movement and or the greatest impact in the system, and give us some additional information about how we as a system go about addressing those particular issues. Those will all be pulled back into the task force, who will then build them into a report. I'm going to go quickly through the next couple of slides, but one, go ahead, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Community engagement, and the next slide. We have a set of tools that we're using to support how, even beyond the 160 or so folks that may be involved in the advisory committees, that we can engage other folks in this process. There's a lot of interest, as you can imagine, in terms of people with ideas about how we might move this forward. And then there's a lot of interest in understanding how we have a safer and healthier community for everybody that's involved. So our task force members have agreed to engage with us in the community engagement process. As mentioned, we have a consultant that's supporting our communications, and then our MIG, our facilitative stakeholders, also helping with the community engagement process. Next slide, we just wanted to give you a little bit of a look at the commitments that we heard at our last task force meeting. about groups that they would like to engage with this community engagement set of tools. And bring up to speed on both what the process is and where we seem to be headed with recommendations along the way. Next slide. We're about halfway through the process from when the task force was created to a set of recommendations that we'll deliver back to each of the jurisdictions, but you all as a commission are a critical set of stakeholders for that set of recommendations. We anticipate that we'll have that by the end of May. Wanted to share, and if you want to have more conversation, happy to. One of the things that's been really productive in the task force meetings is what we're talking about is kind of early wins and building momentum. Again, I mentioned it earlier, it's when people are saying, I didn't actually realize that was an issue, or I didn't realize the issue was playing out that way. And I actually operate a system where we have the ability to address that, or if we just got together and had some conversations, or there's things we used to do before COVID hit that we could actually reinstitute at this point, and we haven't yet. So there's opportunity for those conversations. I will also just emphasize, as Emily mentioned, the opportunity for collaboration and the ways in which we believe that everybody, both that leads to best practice and also that everybody is looking for collaboration across systems, really may be the greatest opportunity or win or space for us to build momentum. Yes, we're going to need more resources, and you all and others as elected officials have responsibility and opportunity to think about those issues and weigh what that looks like. But this is as much about how we actually do our work effectively together. There's a lot good going on. One of the things we heard from the Lifeman Group was more than any other community, they've seen a ton of great both programs and resources here. And you know, saying it in a very positive way, we've studied this issue a lot. We have a good sense of what the needs are and where we have opportunity for movement. Last slide, I talked a little bit about this, thank you, but is really about the timeline as we're moving forward. So again, our intent is to bring this back together with a formalized report and set of recommendations from the task force in May to deliver those to you all and other elected bodies to then consider what role you have there. But I will also say, we also see this as an opportunity for us as a community broadly to take action on recommendations. And so it is both by design, but it is also important to acknowledge that it's a set of private sector partners that have brought this together and are also responsible for thinking about how we take action on the recommendations as we move forward. I'm going to pause and give opportunity for Mike and Justin to share, both as task force members, but also as folks who've been working on these issues for a long time. Some thoughts and perspective.
You go first. Okay. Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot to evaluate. There is a lot of recommendations that are coming out of several of the meetings that we had. They align with the SEMS model that you all are familiar with, and gotta forgive me, I'm getting that coming from my head cold here. So at first it was kind of clunky, I'll be honest. We all kind of stood around and stared at each other going, what do we do? You know, and then as it started moving along, it got a little better, and we got a lot of feedback. We have roughly 14 recommendations for the group that I'm in. Right now I'm working with Judge Hazel and Dr. Mace on kind of, I'll give you an example, coming at these I won't call them priorities, these recommendations, and making a list of who the stakeholders are, who should we involve, and how do we involve them. And then also meeting with different groups, like standing groups, kind of exposing them to the overall conversation about, you know, what the task force is about, what our direction is, what we'd like to have, and involve the community members. It's been a good process. I love the intentional putting you in that uncomfortable space to kind of talk about it. At first it was kind of weird, but it's getting a lot better right now. So like there's a lot of work to be done. We're going to try to come out with some priorities out of this. Obviously, we're not going to hit all of these, but we're going to try to get at least, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 that we can move forward with good sound resources and information that goes along with them. Additionally, I'm also on with the planning part of it with the county. I was asked to put together all the iterations of the jail from 2008 to now. And it's in this binder here, which I'll share with them, along with all of the needs assessments from 2008 until now and all the court studies, also in this binder that I will, move forward. And I'm optimistic. I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for us to involve the community, involve all the stakeholders and move this forward. So that's my perspective.
No, I would concur with Mike on that one. I think you always have challenges when you come together to address major topics from different aspects, different points of view, and with disparate voices. But one thing I will say, and I'm very hopeful in, it does and has provided an opportunity for those groups to come together and address those issues, and then especially talking about how we can improve. A lot of what we discussed is how can we improve just strategic integration and work as it stands now. Forget everything else if we want to plan the future, but how can we improve that? That's been very, I think, hopeful as we look towards the future and how we can make things work. I think the challenges that I have personally is I tend to want to start working on things right away. And this is not intended to say, let's be intentional, let's focus on things and not just jump into things. So that's where I would say struggle with action. I'd like to just do those things, which in a lot of ways the county is already working on, especially as we work towards a more comprehensive approach to behavioral health, crisis response and integration. A lot of what the task force has already identified, we're already doing. How can we better rely and communicate that to the community is also something I'm very hopeful in. So I'm actually very excited for a lot of the discussion and work that's going on. I do think there is still a lot more to do, and I'm still there. So I think that kind of speaks to the intentionality that task force has put forward now. I do think there's things to accomplish, and we're still on the table to do.
Could go to the last slide on the deck, which just gives a little more information about where folks can go. I just wanted to conclude by saying a part of this process is very much about bringing people in on some of these conversations who haven't been there. And this would be an abject failure if we didn't have system leaders at the table engaged in the ways that both Mike and Justin have come to the table, as well as other county leaders who have been involved in this. And so we appreciate that, want to appreciate both of them, but also appreciate you all for giving opportunity for your system leaders to really be active participants in this process together. It is clunky at times, and it's also been really helpful at times to see that there is good opportunity for this community to move forward with and without new resources as we think about addressing these issues.
And I'll just say, having gone over to Whatcom County, I was a big advocate for people in Spokane County needed to see the jail and tour the jail and see what we're doing at the stabilization center. Just those things that I think even the groups that went over to Whatcom County from Spokane County, were looking at that and didn't understand where we were. And so I think that was really important. And so I think that, this is just trying to bring all the different perspectives together to make a better outcome for us, because it's like we've got victim, you've got advocates on the jail side, we've got victims that, want to see justice, just all those different perspectives that, as you saw with the leaders on each committee, it's all the perspectives right there at the table. And that's how, I think, how we're going to get a better decision. And, to get something in the future to pass, we need to have, those everyone supporting it, I guess. So that's key for me.
I'll just add, I got to go to Whatcom too, so thanks for the invitation to go there. Yeah, it was just really remarkable when you think about the fact that in Whatcom County, they had 2 failed ballot measures and they figured out how to have a successful one the third time, and they really went through a similar process to what you're describing and were able to find the common ground there that really resulted in all of the jurisdictions agreeing on the outcome there. And that's just an amazing thing. And so I appreciate your leadership in bringing a variety of stakeholders together who don't always naturally join the same room, and appreciate Mike and Justin being involved as well. I know it's a lot of work, tons of work still to go. I'm looking forward to seeing in May, so thank you. Josh.
Can I ask, the community representatives, the emergency response and health representatives, then the government, justice and correctional representatives, have all of these individuals toured the current jail here?
I know all have been offered the opportunity. I'm not sure the utilization at this point. We are, and thank you to actually both our task force members here, have been coordinating monthly tours of both jail facilities as well as the stabilization center. So those who have not had the chance yet still have the opportunity.
Okay,
There's been a lot of people
Yeah,
going through.
okay. I
Almost all at this point have.
I
believe.
would encourage all of those people to do it. I mean, I think I've, you know, couple of months ago, even, you know, one of our former council presidents, I don't think had ever taken a tour based on his remarks after he spent some time in it. He even said on the news, wow, something needs to be done about this jail. So, and I think that was probably his first tour he took of it that night after. So, I think it's very important that folks see the actual facility and not just hear about it. I think actually seeing it with their eyes makes a big difference.
Yeah, that was, when we came back from Bellingham, that was like the first thing that we made happen. And Mike and I talked about to, you know, how can we open this up and get everyone to take a tour?
Yeah, they have a standing offer.
All right.
Yeah, anybody that wants to come tour it, Don will set it up and they'll go through the tour.
Commissioner Wilbur.
Well, thanks for coming today. I really am excited about the work that's being done, and I'm excited to hear that already. It sounds like people are already finding ways that they can improve the system right now that don't necessarily cost us any more money, or there may be ways to maximize it with other funds. But will you be documenting all of those things so we know what comes out even like this year?
Yeah, we've
Like new partnerships, new ways that people are being referred between agencies.
yeah, given that this is largely about moving a community around a set of issues, we know that one of the ways that we can do that effectively is really to document those kind of early wins. As we talked about on the.
So you'll be able to do that on the website as the year goes on.
We are, and
That's-
so we have a set of conversations that people have already had where it's like, oh, Chris, we should connect on this issue because we could actually probably make some improvements there. The improvements are in process right now, so we can't come back and say we've already seen this happen, but we do have. There's been conversations about aligning around when people are released from the jail facility and ensuring that there's a better opportunity for community resources to be connected to those individuals as they leave. Been conversations about the ways in which different court systems are using different mechanisms for asking for individuals to engage in restitution and other activities. And so trying to figure out are there ways for the courts to actually have conversations with each other so that they're not creating competing demands on individuals, which folks that work in the system know are happening. And then there've been, I think the other thing this does is it gives us an opportunity to lift up where collaboration is happening. There's, I think, some really great stuff that's happening across the city and county and Spokane Valley, where having a private set of stakeholders in a position to also share some of that information, I think is helpful for the public to hear. So it's a balance of like where there's good stuff happening that we just want to be able to shine a light on, and where are there opportunities right away to begin to make some changes to.
We're looking for opportunities to cross over for MacArthur Foundation and the community engagement and some of the things that we're doing to see if we can be of help on that side too. So
That was my next.
see, I'm right out in front of you.
Yeah, because you know. The MacArthur Foundation really wanted us to do better community engagement, so that was what I was gonna say. I think that community engagement process that I've been a part of, this, we could really align with what's going on here. Cause I've been out in the community talking about this and sending the website out to people and following up But I guess my two thoughts are, you know, how and when do we connect some of the proposals and ideas as they get fleshed out more? When is the right time to kind of get out to the greater community? You know, not just the very interested stakeholders, but community that have family that, you know, may have gone through substance use disorder, or family that have struggled with housing, or been involved in the criminal justice system. There's a lot of people in our community that want to be involved, but I get that right now, probably there's not a lot to comment on, but when do you see that happening? When do you see this, the recommendations going out and getting more feedback from, in terms of priorities? Because obviously down the road, if there is some sort of ballot measure, or, you know, you need a lot more engagement and the community feeling like they understand and can give input into the priorities.
Yeah, so our task force members at the task force meeting last week were provided information, this toolkit around community engagement, how you can go out into your community and engage around these recommendations. So specifically, I think there is a lot of opportunity with the large list of recommendations to get input from people about how they would, this would make sense to me, or I need more information about that. And we're gonna be gathering that information, and our consultant will be incorporating that, so that that's also a part of what we're using, that kind of community input as a part of identifying which recommendations to move forward with. So I mentioned it's in the slide deck, there's a set of groups that people identify to bring those back to. And some of those are Rotary Club, and some of those are community-based groups, and some of them are some of the things like the MacArthur group people have talked about, the labor unions that work specifically on these issues. So the intent is actually over the next couple of months to be getting that kind of input from people using this toolkit, and a fairly simple process for getting information back, and that will be incorporated into the recommendations as well. I think there's also then moving forward a question of like, okay, what do we all do with this now? And there's another space there for engagement that will be after the task force is done.
Right, what happens after May?
So integrating into, I think that's where we have to think about things
I
like,
think we
okay,
should be
MacArthur's
thinking
continuing.
about what happens then, because I also, my last point was just, when you're looking at the resources, and there's a lot of different resources, we have mental health sales tax, we have opioid settlement dollars, right, that we have already kind of invested, but those might be opportunities for other investments. You know, if there was a more sales tax or other options out there, how do we go about, you know, running those numbers of what some of these strategies or priorities would cost? And how does that happen after May? Because I'm guessing you won't be able to do that much work by the end of May, right? To look at all the.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have a cost associated with every single recommendation that's effectively vetted. I think that there will be, as Mike was talking about the process that they're going through, it's partly about identifying who are the people who actually, and or information that we have that can inform that process. So I do think that that's still a part of what we're going to need to do moving forward. Being able to say what's an actual cost. I think the other side of that question, which is really important to us all as well, is like, what's the opportunity cost? If we actually engage in a particular intervention, what can we expect? And then how can we measure as we go over time the positive impacts that has in terms of reducing
Right,
pressure
return
on
on the
the
investment. Did Walker County, were they able to kind of articulate that?
To some degree, they were able to do it well enough that when they put together their winning ballot proposal, they actually got unanimous elected both municipal and county level leadership to support that. And that was partly a function of their ability to run the numbers and show that they had a good sense of it. And I'll also mention that this stuff takes time, as you all are really, really aware, particularly when it comes to building facilities. And so the kind of projections around cost are oftentimes hard to work with, because by the time we get to a place where we're going to actually engage, those things have changed. And we see that some of the other communities, Whatcom County included, are working on some of those challenges right now, where they built a set of projections over here, and now as they're getting closer to it, they're realizing they may not have the resources necessary for trying to accomplish. So we're trying to also consider that as we work through this, to figure out how do we both pay attention to what are the different resources that may be available even if they require electeds or voters to engage. And then how do we assess effectively the costs associated, particularly as we think about capital costs where you see the escalation happen more dramatically.
I think it's also important to be clear in that the task force is advisory. And that really is, the idea is developing data informed priorities for you all to consider as you're thinking about fiscal realities and planning and moving forward. And so I think that's important as we continue through this process.
And there's short-term, midterm and long-term goals, right? And so one of them is expanding the MAP program. With the new medical provider, we're already on that track, but it's gonna take us time to get there. And so I think if we talk in terms of priorities, short-term, midterms and long terms, I think that we're gonna be in good shape. So.
Can I ask, has anyone run the numbers to see what the current value of the 2/10 public safety sales tax is worth now, since the city of Spokane and the Spokane Valley have each passed by ballot measure a 1/10 in those jurisdictions? What's the 2/10 of countywide 1/10? So what are those worth now with those
Our
ballots?
budget office is running those
Running
numbers.
them
Okay.
now.
So
Gosh.
we've asked
Okay.
Jeff to put that together.
Okay. I would assume that would be very valuable in what you're doing too, to know. I mean, if the recommendation comes in twice as much as those 2/10 are even worth, then we have a problem. So,
We're also, I think the task force is also trying to look at, which this is gonna be my questions with the MOU that we are gonna talk about later. Trying to look at ways that we're already can be integrating the dollars that are already out there and being spent. It's part of where the city came along with us on some of our projects, to integrate it all together, and seeing what else is out there. So that is like my question as this MOU that is out there. Because I feel like the task force is doing this. Kind of what your thoughts on the MOU? Does it help strengthen what you guys are doing or not?
I can't speak to the MOU, not, I have not received much information about it yet. It hasn't come up at the task force meeting, so I don't know that we're gonna be able to talk about how they would integrate.
I think I agree in terms of the specific MOU. I will say that I think that we are generally have a sense at the task force and the conveners that the ability to articulate effective collaboration across jurisdictions is pretty important to our ability to go back to voters and ask for additional resources at whatever level is available. So we see this as an opportunity to surface and lift up where that effective collaboration is happening currently. And as there are other opportunities for that, whether it's through an MOU, an IGA or otherwise, those feel really critical to be able to make visible as well. I also wanted to mention, Commissioner Kearns, to your question, I think, Mike's point about the early, mid and long-term recommendations is partly a function of thinking about where we might have recommendations where, boy, if we could put this in place, that would be great, but it costs us too much. Well, in order to get at the kind of resources that are necessary to do that, that's a long-term goal. There's a lot more work that has to be done to address that. I also think there's going to be a lot of stuff that fits into the short and midterm frame that will give good opportunity for us as a community to think about when and where there might be additional resources. How do we use those resources effectively? And I think the other question I know is really critical for folks in this room is that overlay between programs and capital facilities. And what's the relationship between those two? And are there ways in which we can make investments on the program side that might reduce some of the cost assumptions on the facility side? And are there ways in which we can we can create facilities that actually incorporate effective ways to do programming that currently we're just not able to because of the issues that you mentioned in terms of when people visit the gym?
And I think we have to have those long-term things that may cost more money than we have in order to find out if are there foundations out there? Are there other opportunities to like MacArthur to come in? And if we have those already we have an ability to program it. We just need funding. Those kind of funders are, able to help more than we don't have an idea. So I think it's just, since we have this task force, putting this stuff together, some of the ideas are gonna, come forward and we're not gonna agree with all of them, because it's really ultimately for the county commissioners on some of these, but are gonna be making decisions. Cities can make their own decisions on some of their dollars. So but that's why May is important to kind of get that information so we can then start to deliberate and have discussion on it.
This is helping us flesh them out, what those are, and then prioritize them, so, and really our message is in the plan. And
And it's
moving forward.
Truly breaking down the silos within the community from all these different organizations and giving each other the perspective that helps make a better decision. So we're beyond time, so I'm gonna.
Okay, I just wanted to circle back to what you were saying about an agreement or an MOU. Was there in Whatcom County? Did one of the things that came out of all of the work that they did with the community, was there an agreement between the jurisdictions about how they were gonna work together with, in general, about their criminal justice and their mental health system, but also specifically how they would share?
There's just more
Resources.
the resource side of it.
Okay.
That they got all the jurisdictions.
Not necessarily on the policy side.
And kind of, that was. Because they had set up that it was gonna be a 5-year plan of funding, all funding going to the county for the facility side before programming would go to it. So it was still the understanding of programming, but not specific.
And my understanding as well was that, I think you're right about the sharing of resources for the facilities piece, that all the jurisdictions agreed on that. The task force in Whatcom County went through its process, delivered its 15-point plan. There was a period of, deliberation between the jurisdictions. And then all the jurisdictions passed a resolution basically endorsing that plan, tied in with a ballot measure as a resolution. And then that was after the task force process had completed, that kind of got fleshed out to some level. And then I believe after the ballot measure passed is when they actually signed the ILAs, specifically to sharing of resources. That was my understanding of the time frame, but it really followed from this task force process of a community giving its recommendations.
Right. Until you have the money, maybe you don't have to worry about the ILA.
But they had some level of commitment, which was really amazing.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Sorry for a little longer, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that PowerPoint presentation?
You sent
They
it.
do nail this.
I hope separately.
I have it too.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's nice.
Okay, gonna take us to Doug.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
It's like we cleared the room.
Yeah, you did.
Nothing I said, goodness. Good morning, Commissioners. I have 2 items here before you that involve acquisitions and utilizing state contracts. Maddie Powell, our project manager, is responsible and lead on both of these projects. So I'm going to let her step in and take over. She's put together some great, very brief presentations.
Good morning. The first one we'll start off with is the Avista Stadium concessions rebuild. We are asking to use the Omnia Partner state contract to hire the supplier and installer for the kitchen equipment. Next slide, please. Oh, no, sorry, stay on this one. So as you know, we had a fire back in September, and the last several months have been getting everything in place to rebuild. Demo was completed in December and January. And then in January, we've been doing foundation work, and today we are starting the walls. So we're moving ahead. All of the design work has been completed, and all of the construction work has been bid out through the GCCM process, except for the kitchen equipment, which had a little bit of a delay. We are targeting substantial completion May 22nd of this year. Next slide, please. So our request is to use the Omnia Partner State contract to hire the kitchen equipment, which is the walk-in coolers, freezers, and ventilation hoods. That's all the equipment that is county supplied as part of the facility. Everything else is being supplied by the Spokane Indians. We are proposing using the state contract because it saves a little bit of time so that Leidig doesn't have to go out and rebid this package, and then it saves us from going through another GMP amendment. And the holder of the state contract is Edward Don and Company, or Don Build. They are the Spokane Indians kitchen supplier for their equipment, and also helped us as a sub-consultant to design the kitchen layout. So they're already very familiar with what is needed, and all the equipment that they would propose is already been coordinated with HVAC, electrical, mechanical. So keeping them prevents any further delays from further HVAC, coordination if it were to be a different company. The current quote from Don Build is around 300,000, or I'm waiting on confirmation that that includes prevailing wage and a bond and a couple other things that purchasing requires. So that number may creep up just a little bit. But this process is in line with county purchasing standards, and it has been proved by insurance, who is paying for this. This is the preferred way that they asked us to do this. Next slide, please. So again, our request is to have approval to use the state contract, and there will be a resolution request in next week's legislative agenda. Any questions on the Avista on this one? So we can move on to the next slide, which is a very similar request, but it's for a different project and slightly different reasons. For the Glen Eden Community Park playground equipment purchasing, again requesting to use the state contract. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. The current playground equipment is reaching the end of its usable life. It's about 20 years old. And this year you all graciously approved $330,000 to replace the equipment in part of this year's CIP. In January, we completed a community outreach survey and got some feedback from the community on what they would like to see. And we are targeting construction to wrap up around June, so that we can kind of get some things wrapped up before we do some project management of that. Next slide, please. So this process would include getting the playground equipment, the surfacing, and the installation for all that through one of the state contracts. This one would either be through the Omnia or the KCDA contract that the county is part of. We have not decided yet because we still aren't sure. We're still looking at feasibility and what type of equipment makes the most sense there. Again, this meets all Spokane County purchasing requirements, and this gives us a little bit more control, because if we were to bid out the playground equipment, we can say generally what we would like, but the playground suppliers really have more, they are kind of proposing equipment to us, while as using the state contract, there's set prices for each type of equipment and stuff, so we can pick exactly what we want, which is really important when we think about maintenance and their needs, and then also what the feedback we've gotten from the community. So again, we're still working, if this were to be approved, we're still trying to figure out which supplier and which contract would make the most sense. Almost all of the large playground suppliers are part of one of the contracts, so we have a lot of variety. And that contract amount would be under $300,000. Next slide, please. So again, our request is to have approval to use one of the state contracts to purchase the equipment, sourcing, installation to the playground equipment. And the request will be for resolution in next week's legislative agenda, or a future one if it doesn't make it next week. And then we have just a couple more slides about kind of an update on the Glen Eden project. Like I said, we did a community outreach process in January. We don't do this for all of our park projects or playground projects. A lot of times we just go and replace things, but we know that Glen Eden is a very special community, and there's a lot of ownership of that park. And so we did want to just reach out to the neighborhood around it and make sure that we understood kind of where the community is at and what they would like to see. So we got 150 responses through door hangers in the immediate neighborhood and then social media website posts. We had 13 kids, 109 guardians, and then a handful of other park users. The survey was pretty unanimous in the feedback that we got. They want to keep the natural feel of the playground, love the moose, they want to keep the moose in the charm. And the zip line and the sense of adventure is really important to them. Next slide, please.
Will say if you grew up in the area and live near there, there's guarantee you have a photo sitting on the antlers of the moose. It's an iconic moose.
Yeah, so our plan currently is to try to keep the moose. Risk management has made it very clear that it is
I
not
don't want to hear try.
Yeah.
But here the moose will be there.
Right there.
Yes.
Star.
So
They're all getting Doug's phone number.
Yeah, it's
Everybody.
it'd be in the background of the photo.
fine.
Stand in front of it instead of.
Commissioner Kearns makes a motion to keep the moose. I'll second that.
Chris knows. He knows the moose.
So all our plans point towards keeping the moose. There are some, if you look closely, there are some cracks on the moose and we, talking with experts, they do think they're surface cracks. So we're just hoping that it stays in one piece when we move it. But we're planning to put it in the center island. So it is more of a, it's still very much part of the park. It's just clear that it's not for kiddos to play on. And then moving it also increases play area, so we have more space for them to do that, and it satisfies all risk management's concerns. We are planning to keep a nature play theme to the playground and some pieces that offer a high sense of adventure. But the community is very diverse in kids' age ranges, so there's a lot of families with littles and a lot of families with teenagers that still want to be able to use the park. So we're trying to find pieces that kids can grow with and still have a lot of fun. And then spruce up the landscape, just a little bit of love. Final slide, please. Here, I just provided a decision log of some of the things that we, and how we came to these decisions. One of the main ones is that we are choosing to continue with wood fiber surfacing. That was something that did come from the community, that they liked that, the play benefit of it and the natural feel of it instead of poured in place rubber, which I think was one of our initial thoughts. It also saves a significant amount of money that we can put towards equipment. And with our other park improvements, we've learned that sometimes those create greater maintenance concerns. So with this design, everything we're doing here, we're trying really hard to make sure that maintenance is gonna stay the same. So even with the wood fiber surfacing, we're picking equipment that instead of like a zip line where kids drag their feet and move everything around, things that don't move the wood fiber as much. Again, we're committing some dollars to moving the moose and then requesting the use of the state contract. So, any questions on Glen Eden? Okay. And we'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Gonna take some miscellaneous, so Josh.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up, I was having some conversation with some folks, and I know, was it 2-3 weeks ago or so, we had the presentation on the Treatment First MOU. And I think where we left it was that, we give folks an opportunity to read through it. It wasn't in that original packet. So I just wanted to make sure that didn't fall through the cracks, and I'd like to request that we put that on next week's consent agenda for adoption. I think it is in today's packet. I think several area cities have been signing on. I think the group of folks that drafted this have been continuing to schedule presentations with other cities, and it seems like there's some momentum, and I think we should join those cities and sign on as well.
Is that a motion?
No, I'm asking that it goes on a the next week's consent agenda.
I was just gonna second it for what?
I had a chance to review it in more detail. I made some phone calls to several stakeholders, including SBA, GSI, and DSP. And none of those three chambers have taken a position on it at this time. There's certainly some concern I heard from some of the housing stakeholders. I personally think I'd like to see where the Safe and Healthy Task Force conversation goes. If you read the MOU, it's really heavily framed as like a regional strategy for behavioral health and public safety. I think we just got a great presentation from, significant body of stakeholders that has come together on public safety and behavioral health. And I don't really want to get ahead of that process by jumping to say that we've got a new regional strategy when a regional strategy is really being developed to bring to us. I think it's really important that we seek to try to stay in coordination with our jurisdictional partners. And that includes the city of Spokane, the city of the Valley, who are at the table in the Safe and Healthy Task Force process. So as I said last time, I think there's some really interesting, promising ideas in the MOU, but I'd personally like to let the task force give us some recommendations on safety and health first.
And so that was a concern of mine as well, and I reached out to one of the conveners that's on the group, not one of the two that was at the table with us today. And I asked the individual if this would cause any issues or derail any of that work. And what the individual told me was that no, in fact, this whole conversation around housing first, treatment first is a discussion that they're having. And that they said if we were to act on this resolution, essentially that just answers the question for the Safe and Healthy Task Force. And that essentially checks a box on their decision matrix and they will continue to move forward. So they did not indicate that it would be any that it would cause any issues with the work that they are doing. In fact, that it would actually answer a question that they are trying to make in that group. So.
Well, I would suggest that it would be important that all of the stakeholders who are involved in the convening and planning team get a chance to share input on that, because it has been a consensus-based process, not necessarily, this person saying we're good and that one says no, we're not. So that's one idea, is to kind of bring it back to the full list of stakeholders on the planning side.
I understand, and I respect that, but I would also point back to one of the things that, as Cameron said at the table today, was this is an advisory body and we are the decision makers. So I still, so I guess my ask would be for Matt to draft a resolution, hoping we can put it on next week's consent agenda. I think this document allows for many, quite frankly, outs to any jurisdiction. I mean, there's much like many of the other regional things, it does not commit any jurisdiction. It does not force any other jurisdiction to do anything. I mean, it's a statement of that we support this type of policy. And I quite frankly wish it were a little more forceful, but this is the one that all the other jurisdictions are signing, and I think it's a good document.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Jordan that I would like for our community, our region, to have a regional approach to how we want to handle treatment. And how we want, and I think we already have an ILA that speaks to how we're trying to get people housed as quickly as possible. So, I mean, personally, there's things in here that I agree with, but there's pieces that I don't. The phrase treatment first, I don't know what that means. I don't think it's based on any, it's a approach that I couldn't find when I did any searching that is based on any evidence-based approach to trying to support people who are chronically homeless with their substance use disorder challenges. So that's a section that I wouldn't agree with, but there's other pieces in here that I think are well stated. So I would need to have to make, I would want to make changes to the document, not just accept something that several people, brought forward to us. I think most of the time when we do any kind of memorandum or agreement, we give input and make changes to a document. So that's just my discomfort with that.
I would counter that by saying the several people that brought it forward to us include the elected county sheriff and the current county prosecutor. And to the treatment first orientation, the document describes it as prioritize immediate access to behavioral health, substance use, and primary care treatment for individuals experiencing homelessness. Recognize treatment as a critical step towards stability, dignity, and housing readiness, and identify policies and procedures that limit open illicit drug use and eradicate urban camping, loitering, and squatting. That's in the document.
It was also described as an effort to kind of align with an executive order that's come down from the federal administration, which the state of Washington has sued to stop, and there's active litigation over it. It's under a restraining order right now, is my understanding, or some kind of order pausing it. So my one concern is that, we have a regional process that is underway right now to try to develop consensus around issues of public safety and public health. And we're potentially talking about moving forward an MOU that is about aligning with a contentious federal policy that we don't know where that's going to land right now in the courts, which is, and to reiterate, there's a lot that you just read that is good in this document. So my view is not that everything is bad in the document, but I think it's premature to say, hey, we've got a new regional strategy when we have not engaged with some of our largest regional partners on this MOU at this point. We have not spoken with the city about it. We haven't brought it back to the convening group as a whole on the task force. So I just think it's premature. And I'd hate to introduce something that turns into a conflictual issue potentially, which could happen when we're trying to maintain and walk together on a regional strategy that we all have a common interest in.
I respect that, but there's nothing in the document that references an executive order by the president. And several, I believe there are 5 different jurisdictions in the county that have signed on to this document. You're right, the city of Spokane is not one that has signed on yet. But I believe Deer Park, Medical Lake.
City of Spokane Valley.
Not yet. I believe they have been presented, but I don't believe they've signed on yet. But there are five jurisdictions that have. I think it's Medical Lake, Liberty Lake, Airway Heights, Millwood, and Deer Park. I believe have signed on to date and are continuing to present. But I will read under the purpose and scope. I just also want to make sure folks saw this line. The parties intend for the MOU to encourage cooperation and provide foundation and structure for the coordinated regional response to those experiencing chronic homelessness, and it's related to health and crisis. But if you jump down to the next one, it says this, the next paragraph down, it says this MOU does not establish or create any type of formal agreement or obligation, nor does it commit any funds of any party. So I think that's very important, just to make sure that we understand what this is requiring and what this is not requiring of those that decide to sign it.
So my only issue is like in section 3 of the objectives. It says the parties that agree that the following principles shall be the foundation of any joint action. Foundation is what the word I have an issue with. So because that I feel like commits us to joint actions. And so I would want to change that terminology, that it makes it less. To me, that we would take these principles into consideration for joint actions, but not as a foundation. I think if that word changes for me, I'd be okay with what it is, but it's like, because I think these are principles that, yeah, we all want to take into consideration as we make decisions, but we haven't actually, you know, had a discussion on each of these things individually. And talk to with our staff as to each of these things. I agree with, yeah, with most of them, but I think if we change the word foundation to, they'll be taken into consideration as we make joint decisions, because that's part of what the task force is trying to do, is we will be taking what they bring to us into consideration. We're not going to be taking it, you know, we're not going to agree to everything. So that's the word that I'm not comfortable with signing at this point in time. So if we can talk to the conveners of who put this together and change that terminology for me, then it'd be fine.
Terminology which you feel more comfortable with.
I said, like I said, take into consideration these, you know, before you make a joint action. But when you say foundation, that means you're using that as your basis. And I think it's something we're taking these items into consideration, which we have already been doing. As we've looked at all these different things that we're doing. But I think foundation is just a word that I think I'm not comfortable with. So I think if we can talk to, you know, Chad and see if we like
Reach out to Preston and Sheriff Knowles and see.
Yeah.
Why they chose foundation. Right, to
I
have
think
the
they're trying to make it stronger, and I'm just trying to say, we're still the body making the decision. That need to have be saying, these are the things that we will take into consideration as we make these decisions. I don't think it's ready for next week.
Okay.
Okay, so appointments to the Spokane Regional Health for non-elected community representatives.
I think we're gonna take that one in executive session.
Okay. Was that on our executive session list?
It's not, we've got a couple of.
Is there any other items for executive session or for miscellaneous?
Not for miscellaneous, but
Yes.
I do have a executive session.
Okay, yeah, you said that. We'll get to that in a second. Is there any other miscellaneous items?
Wouldn't mind, can I bring up just a couple of quick grant opportunities that you haven't had the time to talk about real quick? Okay, there's just two ones I just wanted everybody to know are on our radar. The Spokane River Toxics Reduction Grant application is out. There's about $1 million available for river watershed projects. We've been discussing to see if we would have eligibility, and we think we would. So the thought was to apply for the cost of a full-time employee to cover what the general fund would have to cover to administer the POET systems. And so just to offset the project manager's costs to deliver on that grant project. And then.
Wait, can I ask a question? So you said that was the river form?
No, it's the Spokane River Toxics Reduction Grant.
Oh, okay.
It's the whole region of the dischargers. There's a very short cycle grant opportunity for that. The funds are available from June 2026 to June 2027, which is lines up really, really well with the delivery system project.
So, and it wouldn't matter which watershed or.
They think this will be eligible, but you know, it's still a competitive. Yeah.
So I've seen some recent literature about a process that captures humidity in the air, turns it into potable water, and then it's available for drinking. It's really more for off-grid systems. But I was wondering, are you familiar with those systems? And are they reliable or not? And would they be available to us to be able to serve some of the folks that have got PFAS in the West Plains?
I have some familiarity. I've read quite a few articles about them. There's a few different ones out there. Most of them have been more in lab setting, not commercial setting, although there are some pilot projects out there. I think some of the first ones were more in more humid environments where they could have a higher yield. I don't think this kind of technology is being developed for a lot of different climates and a lot of different places. I don't know of any functional systems, in North America that are even operating yet, other than in a university lab. But certainly something we have our eyes on, and
Okay,
technology is always advancing. Then with its commercial scalability, we'll be certainly keeping our eyes on.
yeah, I was just thinking about some of those parcels that are going to be hard to reach because of piping and rock and all that kind of stuff. This might be a nice substitute for that, or interim for that and stuff. So anyway, just wanted to put it on your radar.
Keep our eyes on it.
Okay.
And then just the other one that's opened up right now is just the MACA Oversight Remedial Action Grant. Applications are due March 17th on that. Those funds are available in the 27 to 29 biennium. Certainly has its budget limitations, but it's worth a swing.
Yep.
But yeah, we gotta show that we're going after everything we can possibly go after.
And then another grant cycle to put on your radar is FIMS have announced today that they have grant funding available and stuff. So I think you should have gotten an email. If you haven't, I'll forward the one that I got.
I think I've seen that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if that's all the miscellaneous, then we have an executive session. And we'll begin with it.
Pending or potential litigation, 5 minutes. And just our core team, Matt, board and extended management is fine.
Five other ones. And you potential litigation. Relax.
Matt.
No action is anticipated at the end of any of these. First one, 30 minutes, Matt Folsom, Devin Kurta, Kyle Tuig, Ben Bradabo if he's available. Then a closed labor session, again, no action. Devin Kurta, Josh Grote, Ashley Cloud. Pending and potential litigation, Devin Kurta, Matt Folsom, 10 minutes, no action. Pending and potential litigation, 10 minutes, no action, Matt Folsom, Devin Kurta. And then final one, Jim Amacio, Devin Kurta. 10 minutes? Less.
That would be fine, Matt, 10 minutes, thank you.
Okay, any particular order they want things? Or we're just gonna have people in and out.
Yeah, it's probably you can get Ashley and Josh out of here early, so let's do the closed labor and then the third one first.
Just an FYI, I leave for Olympia tomorrow. So, I mean, there's a cutoff.
Be done before tomorrow. We have till 2, right?
Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session for an hour and 15 minutes for the items just stated. No action is anticipated on any of those items. So at the end of our executive session, we will adjourn for the morning and see everybody at our 2 o'clock.
You and Josh are ready, we can take your